Welcome to SuperTalk Outdoors. Hope you're having a great day. This is where we celebrate every single Monday at lunchtime the world-class outdoors of the state of Mississippi, because this is the capital of the outdoors in America. Hey, listen, I shared last week on my show just a little small sliver from a book I'm writing about hope. It was spurred by Hurricane Katrina, but it goes a lot deeper than that. I got some great feedback from people as I talked about the role that outdoors can play in bringing peace to our lives and hope to our lives. And I really appreciate the feedback. Keep the feedback coming. We like that, and we love the input. We love the suggestions on guests that we can have. So also do that as well. But listen, I want to thank you for joining us on the Super Talk Mississippi Radio Network. Some of you are listening to Super Talk Outdoors at supertalk.fm. That's really a great place if you're sort of out of the area of the radio stations that you normally listen to. You can just go on your phone to supertalk.fm and say, listen now at noon on Mondays and listen to the show. But you're also listening on Amazon Alexa, the SuperTalk Mississippi app, SuperTalk TV at C Spire TV, YouTube, Facebook, your favorite podcast. You know the drill. We try to be there wherever, whenever you want to engage in the show. It's May the 19th, 2025. Wow, it's amazing. And you know something interesting? I haven't been offshore yet. Usually by this time of the year, we have been offshore 2 or 3 times. And, we fish back in the backwaters, but this is a great time to be offshore, and the reports coming in from offshore are just great. Problem has been is just family events and this and that, and some are out of town and some aren't. And I don't know, man, it's great. My son Jordan took the big boat to Horn Island last weekend, and it was a good little checkout ride for it. And obviously it was flawless. And he said the island, Horn Island, was just beautiful last weekend. So hopefully we'll be getting offshore in the next couple of weeks. Won't be next week because we're going to be down in Miramar for a big family reunion, something we do every year. Rent this huge house, and family members come up from Florida and from across Mississippi, and we come together and enjoy our time together. We've done it like 30 years in a row, so it's amazing. Now we got grandkids and new wives and families growing, just amazing. Okay, so look, today is a fun day. We're going to have Ricky Flint from the Outdoor Stewardship Trust Fund is going to give us an update in the second half of the show. And Ed Penny, the Director of Public Policy for the Southern Region for Ducks Unlimited, is joining me now. And he's someone I haven't checked in with in a while. So without any further ado, let me welcome Ed back to I almost said my other show's name, to Super Talk Outdoors. How you doing, Ed?
Good morning, Ricky. I'm doing great. Good to hear your voice. Good to see your face again. It's been a while.
Yeah, it is really good. Hey, listen, for people who have not heard you and me talk before, why don't you give a kind of a quick overview of what the Director of Public Policy in the Southern Region is all about?
Yeah, happy to do that, Ricky. And again, it's great to be back. My role at Ducks Unlimited is to work on policy that supports Ducks Unlimited's mission and business. That means I get to work in a lot of states, 13 states from New Mexico to Virginia. I'm based here in Jackson, Mississippi, and I work on a lot of federal policy as well that supports all of our work in the southern states and around the country.
Well, I look forward to getting an update from you on the latest in your world. You know, I was chatting with a guest in the last 2 or 3 weeks, and you know what? It actually has come up twice. It came up in my conversation with Will Primos last week. Will joined me for the full show last week. It was awesome. He's really committing a lot of his energy to giving back, and there's this big raffle coming up where this series of shotguns are going to be given away that he's donated. They're worth $1 million, I might add. But that's awesome to see Will in there. And we sort of reflected a bit about how good it is to see things settle down on the commission for the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. Looking back at all that noise that we contended with for that period of time, we're now back focused on policy, and you don't hear the noise, and you got great commissioners doing their work. But I just want to commend you, Ed, because I felt like you were courageous, that you were willing to speak up. And it's we have to have more people like you. We have to have more people, like a lot of people, who are willing to speak up. But you were a good example. But isn't it nice to see a commission where they're focused on policy and doing what's right and supporting the agency and not having all that noise? It's just been terrific to see, hasn't it?
It is. It's a great thing to see. The commission does have such an important role to play in conservation in the state. It's great that they're using science to support a lot of the decisions they make. And, I do respect the decisions that they have to make on a monthly basis, from whitetail deer to waterfowl management to dove seasons to managing our fisheries. They have a lot to coordinate, a lot to manage and oversee. They've got some great staff, and I'm glad that they're leaning on to work with them to do all the good things that we get to enjoy here in the state.
What's interesting is it continues to be a theme of the show, the notion around managing chronic wasting disease. And I think William McKinley and that team, I think a large number of experts, and I would say wildlife whitetail managers in states across the United States have been doing a great job of coming together and sharing data and developing this central repository where we can draw best practices and develop really incredible data points about what's going on in America as it relates to chronic wasting disease. This slow march across the landscape. That's what makes it so insidious, because it's so darn slow, but it's so real at the same time. And all we can hope to do is slow it down and hope that science eventually catches up. I find it so interesting that Mississippi, having been such a leader as it relates to whitetail deer in so many different ways, doesn't have county specific data that's being gathered around harvest reporting. And we weren't able to get that through the legislatures this past legislative session, which I'm really surprised about, to be honest with you. But I'm thrilled that we've got a chairman in the Senate side that's working diligently. Same thing on the House side, and that they both are going to work, I think, primarily focused next year on getting that done, because we need county specific harvest data. We're the only state in the nation that doesn't have it, and we've got it in so many other species, but can't get it for whitetail deer. I think it's going to be critical that we get that. But aside from that, it's good to see our state leading when it comes to this. And I still recognize that the commission will still face tough decisions going forward. I'm going to support them in whatever tough decisions they need to make. But at least they're making the appropriate decisions for now based on the information that's available to them. And that's good to see. I know you've hunted in a county that is a CWD zone. It was a CWD zone, then not a CWD zone, and then a CWD zone again. That was a little bit unfortunate that little turnabout took place. But the fact is, it's where it needs to be right now. And you've watched that carefully. I mean, anyway, it's good to see us finally proceeding forward in a legitimate, database, science-based way.
That's right, Ricky. And as a landowner, we've got property. We hunt with family, just like so many other Mississippians do. And having consistency, having some science-based justification for decisions is absolutely what state wildlife agencies have to do. It's what commissioners are called to do. It's what our biologists and other folks are supposed to do as well. So, having consistencies to support compliance, getting citizens to be part of the data collection equation. We've done that in waterfowl management for generations, using waterfowl hunters to help provide data to support continued hunting and harvest. So, deer hunters are happy to do the same, and we hope that more reasonable scientific data collection through harvest reporting is something that we can get behind here in the state.
Well, let's just turn to ducks. I want to get the latest from Ducks Unlimited. I think I may have reported to you. Our season last year started out on a bang. We had a great opening hunt, and things were going really well, and then it got slow again. Kind of mirrored a bit what we experienced the year before. We were really hopeful. We were really hopeful, but it just didn't turn out that way. Looking back on last year's season, how do you talk about it?
We've got fewer ducks. We have 40% fewer mallards that are being that are breeding in the prairies. You got to remember where our waterfowl come from, and it's north of us. It's in the prairie pothole region. It's in the boreal forest of Canada, and we have a lot fewer ducks, and that's what we are seeing there, fewer to go around, and we're hearing that and seeing that not just in Mississippi, but around the South and in different wintering regions. So we got to keep that in mind first, that we got to have good production on the breeding grounds. And we had some good times during the season last year. You just mentioned a couple, and I had some good times kind of mid-January, but it wasn't throughout the whole season. And in order to have a great season, we got to have a lot of ducks.
When we come back on the other side, we'll continue our conversation with Ed Penny and find out what's going on in his world and what's going on at Ducks Unlimited these days. We'll see you after this break. Welcome back to Super Talk Outdoors. Listen, are you looking to purchase your perfect piece of hunting property, upgrade your farm equipment, or have you been dreaming of owning your slice of heaven out in the country? Look no further than Mississippi Land Bank for your financing needs. For more than 100 years, farming families and landowners in North Mississippi have turned to Mississippi Land Bank for all kinds of financial solutions, whether it's for land, equipment, or livestock. For more information, visit mslandbank.com or go by and see one of their friendly staff at any of their offices. We're so thrilled to have Mississippi Land Bank as a sponsor of Super Talk Outdoors. Now let's get back over to my friend Ed Penny, Director of Public Policy for the Southern region of Ducks Unlimited. We talk about this a lot. I think it's so important to keep the focus on it. When we talk about where our ducks come from, Ed, and the degradation of, essentially the landscape there that breeds the ducks, it's no wonder, for example, that the mallard hatchings are down 40%. I mean, there are big challenges in that region of North America, isn't there?
There are supreme serious challenges there, and I'd love to talk more about a threat that we're facing right now in Congress. But we have had some ongoing drought. It's serious drought up there. It's always dry. We've had wet cycles over the last 15, 20 years that have had tremendous positive effects to our duck hunting and waterfowl populations. But we're in a serious drought right now, and when things are dry, it's a lot easier to permanently drain wetlands and to increase agriculture on that landscape. And that's kind of what we're looking at right now. There's a lot of threats going on, but drought is the primary situation that we have on both the U.S. and the Canada side of the prairie potholes.
So let's talk about some of the issues some of what you've been focused on and since the last time you and I talked.
At the state level, and I know that Ricky Flynn is going to be on later, but the Mississippi Outdoor Stewardship Trust Fund is one of the primary state issues that I work on around the South, and it's a huge priority for Ducks Unlimited. But I'm also working at the federal level, and right now there's some serious things that we have to pay attention to as waterfowl hunters, and as Mississippians, and happy to talk further about that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so we're working with Senator Roger Wicker right now to defend conservation easements in the prairie potholes, and this is how important it is for waterfowl hunters and duck populations. Waterfowl hunters are part of the process in protecting the landscape up there and protecting prairie potholes and wetlands and grassland breeding habitat that our mallards require in order to breed. So when duck hunters buy a federal duck stamp, they use U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service uses those dollars to protect private working lands, and a lot of these lands are in grazing. They're grazed by cattle. A lot of ranchers use these lands, and they also provide duck habitat. And right now, there's certain people in the U.S. Senate that want to give landowners the ability to buy out those easements or to buy them back from the federal government. And that creates a problem for all the waterfowl hunters that have supported the voluntary purchase of those conservation easements. And again, these lands are still in private lands. They're not owned by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. They're not owned by Ducks Unlimited. They're owned by the private landowners. And what we get is the benefit of providing waterfowl habitat on those. So Those are at risk right now. Senator Wicker has been working with us and our staff to make sure that Southern duck hunters' voices, particularly Mississippi duck hunters' voices, are heard in Congress right now.
So what you're saying though is that if this is successful and they're able to get those easements back, that would be a pretty significant degradation of a region where we need there to be wetlands and duck habitat. What kind of impact would that have?
That would have a pretty serious impact. And I think the stat is 1 out of 10 ducks that we see from our duck blinds are produced on these easement lands. And again, these are still held in private hands. Private landowners, ranchers, farmers still own these lands. What we did was just pay for the easement and pay to keep those wetlands protected permanently. And what we're trying to do is make sure that duck hunters' voices are heard, and Senator Bozeman from Arkansas, Senator Wicker from Mississippi, Senator Graham from South Carolina. We're working with them to make sure that our voices are heard, and it's important to keep an eye on this stuff because it's never things are never as secure or as certain as they seem, especially right now. So we're working pretty hard right now to protect conservation easements in perpetuity.
Never say never, right?
That's correct. I wouldn't have a job. I wouldn't have job security without some level of uncertainty. But we need to make sure that our voices are heard, that people like Senator Wicker hear from us and know that we care about these things, and that Mississippi has an interest, even in a place like North Dakota or South Dakota.
Well, Ed, I have not been following that issue. I'm glad you brought it to my attention. If you were a betting man, what's it look like in terms of the odds of something like that actually happening?
That's an interesting question. I don't want to bet because I want to make sure that we're doing everything we can. This is part of the reconciliation effort that Congress is undergoing right now to make sure that a budget gets passed. But it's important to understand that even duck hunters' interests and duck hunter issues are part of this, and we have to protect what we care so deeply about.
So, Ed, one of the, we mentioned the Outdoor Stewardship Trust Fund. I've talked about it on this show an awful lot, mentioned it several times in the last couple of weeks, most recently with Will Primos last week. Because what you've got with the budget for our state not having been resolved by the time the legislative session was over and needing to have this special session in order to get that resolved. They're barreling down the road to get that done. It's going to happen soon. And the reality is that when you get in a mode like that, it's going to be really easy for something to fall through the cracks. Now, I sent a note to the lieutenant governor last week that he said they were working on it. I've heard some like good comments coming from the legislature, but I have no proof yet that it's actually part of the budget. I'm looking to get that. But it's interesting. We were worried about this when the legislature passed the Outdoor Stewardship Trust Fund and the governor signed it. They would have to come back every year and get that appropriation. And I think all of us dream of a day when there are reoccurring funds where we don't have to go back and worry like we are this year with a special legislative session about to happen. That's potentially the money related to the Outdoor Stewardship Trust Fund could fall through the cracks. I don't think that's going to happen. I'm hopeful that it's not going to happen just based on some of the feedback that I'm getting, but we shouldn't have to worry about that every year on a program where the matching funds are so significant. The investment that the state is making is multiplying, 3-4 times. It's something we got to stay focused on, isn't it?
It is. And using the example of the duck stamp, hunters, sportsmen and women have always put their money where their mouth is. We hope that we can get a recurring or dedicated funding source for the trust fund here in Mississippi. We think a sporting goods connected funding mechanism makes the most sense because when you buy a fishing rod or when you buy a sleeping bag, some of those tax dollars should go to the places where you can use those items, whether it's lands, waters, or hunting and fishing and fish and wildlife. And It just makes sense. And I know our state sportsmen and women, the people that spend time outdoors, if you're on the water, canoeing, paddling, kayaking, whatever it may be, you want those places to be supported through time and permanently, in perpetuity, whatever word you want to use. But we do need to have some sort of recurring funding mechanism or funding source for the Outdoor Stewardship Trust Fund. It just makes sense.
Tens of millions of dollars to improve our outdoor enjoyment, anything from fishing reefs to boat ramps to duck habitat and just about everything in between. I mentioned last week with Will that I went to one of the lakes where they worked on getting the invasive species of plant out of it. It was just literally overcome in Chula. And I went to take a look, Horseshoe Lake, incidentally, and I went to take a look at it 2 weekends ago, and I was amazed, man. I mean, it was like all opened up and crappie fishermen everywhere. That's a great example of how the Outdoor Stewardship Trust Fund works. And we'll see more of it if we can continue to do that. So listen, Ed, it's been a pleasure to spend some time with you, my friend.
Great to see you, Ricky. Always good to talk about what's happening here in the state and around the country. We do we do need to pay attention, and Ricky, you're a big part of that. And thank you for all you do to bring the news and interests of our people to the state of Mississippi.
Thank you, Ed Penny from Ducks Unlimited. Hey, listen, we'll be with Ricky Flint from the Outdoor Stewardship Trust Fund right after this break. We'll see you after this.